The Flash. He's the fastest man alive. So he gets into troublesome situations a little faster than your average hero. Still, he usually finds a way to make things right, even if it means sacrificing himself. This is 10 of the worst things that have happened to the Flash, part 2. Number 10. His fiancée had a nervous breakdown. Barry Allen has had a few love interests in his lifetime, and Fiona Webb is a prominent one. They fall in love after Iris West, and Barry eventually asks Fiona to marry him. However, when their special day finally comes around, old Professor Zoom shows up and ruins everything. He almost succeeds in killing Fiona. When Barry is busy fighting Zoom as the Flash, he fails to show up at the altar in time, and Fiona thinks he's a runaway groom. The horror and stress of it all sends her over the edge, and she has a breakdown. She winds up getting committed to the hospital as her mental state deteriorates, and it's made even worse when Barry decides to come visit. See, he uses his speed powers to bypass hospital security to visit her, and he doesn't show up on the hospital videotapes. So they think she's crazy when she mentions that the Flash came to visit her. She winds up smashing herself in the face with a picture of Barry and getting carted off on a stretcher, presumably to a padded room. And that's only number 10, folks. The Flash really has a rough time. Hey guys, if you like these videos and you want to see some more, make sure you take a second and hit that like button. Number 9. He let crime run rampant in Central City. In 1987, DC released The Flash issue number 200, in which Wally has his secret identity revealed. He's pretty upset with the public's newfound knowledge of him because he knows the considerable danger this poses to his friends and his loved ones. He winds up taking an offer from Spectre to wipe the general public's memory of the Flash, including his own. In the final pages of this comic, we see the full ramifications of this decision. Wally and everyone else has completely forgotten the identity of the Flash, or whatever happened to him. This comic even explicitly states that the loss of the Flash caused a significant increase in the crime rates in Central City. Countless people suffer and possibly die without a hero patrolling the streets. It's a pretty grim look at things, but perhaps Wally regains his memory later in time? I don't really want to ruin anything for you guys. Let's keep on rolling. Number 8. His brother became a supervillain. Surely almost everybody knows Barry Allen, but there is another, Malcolm Allen. Barry has a secret twin brother who he originally thought died in birth. However, when these two come face to face, it was far from a happy reunion. Malcolm was secretly given to a family of abusive con artists with superpowers, and they constantly taunted him for being inferior while they raised him. Man, that is really messed up. Like, why would you adopt a kid and then just give him a hard time for not being good enough? Like, this is the kid that you picked. Anyway, by the time Malcolm tracks down Barry, he's pretty angry and envious of Barry's life, as you can imagine, and so he vows to kill Barry and everything he holds dear. His adoptive grandmother teaches him how to use the family superpowers, and so he reinvents himself as the supervillain Cobalt Blue. It's not the Flash's fault or anything, it's just another of the many hard knocks the Flash suffers throughout his life. Psychotic vengeful brother? Check. Number 7. Forced to fight his own grandson. How about psychotic vengeful grandson from the future? Also check. During the crossover called Blackest Night, the villain Necron reanimated dead DC characters with some black power rings and created a zombie army of Black Lanterns. Bart Allen is Barry's grandson, who recently died and was resurrected. Barry has temporarily become a Blue Lantern during this event, and he has to face off against his evil grandson. When the two do battle in a graveyard, Bart shows his resentment as he cruelly taunts Barry while the two of them fight. Barry tries to remove the black ring, but is interrupted by an undead version of Reverse Flash. Barry manages to connect with the living Bart beneath the surface by contacting him inside the Speed Force, and they have a really wholesome reunion. Barry owns up to his neglect as he guides Bart through the process of breaking free from the control of the ring. It's a really heartwarming moment. Number 6. Attacked by his future self. Now what if Barry did battle against a psychotic vengeful version of himself? This has also happened, and just another great example of the many struggles of the Flash. Not only does he deal with some super heavy duty villains and storylines, but being a speedster, he's also constantly battling against the past and the future half of the time. In this storyline, we're introduced to a whole new future Barry. After a devastating accident that basically ruins his life, we meet future Barry. It's 20 years into the future, in fact. He's become really hardcore and a little bit unstable. We even see him throw a dude off of a roof and leave one villain to die after a fight. Worse, he discovers a rip in the Speed Force and decides the only way to set it right is to kill his younger self to repair the rip. He drags our Barry from his home and proceeds to beat him to death outside of the city. The young Barry doesn't even stand a chance against his older counterpart, who has been trained by the best in the DC universe. Just when the future Barry is about to break his neck, a future version of Wally West shows up and saves him. With the rip in the Speed Force getting worse, Wally winds up sacrificing himself in the end, and future Barry is left alone, having lost his nephew and sort of become evil. Number 5. He became the Black Flash. The Black Flash is the representation of death for anyone connected to the Speed Force. Once the Black Flash catches up with a speedster, they immediately die. It's like regular death, except it catches up with you a lot faster. When Barry Allen is chasing down the evil speedster Savitar, he reaches out to grab him, and to his surprise, the villain crumbles to dust the moment he is touched. Later, another speedster is turned to dust by Barry's touch, and he realizes he is to blame. Something is wrong with him. He and Wally later on discover that he's been turned into the Black Flash. As his mind and body are slowly taken over by the Black Flash entity, he does the only thing he can. He runs back to the Speed Force, where he was once trapped for years. Even Superman tries to get him to stop, but he fails, and Barry sacrifices himself to save everyone. Again. Number 4. He had to break out of prison. In The Flash number 164, we got to see the Flash kind of go buck wild in a prison and kick the snot out of some guards. It's not the usual scene for a superhero, but it was pretty neat. What's really wild is, we later learn that the guards are actually only trying to imprison the Flash because he is in a mirror dimension where he doesn't actually exist. In this world, anyone with superpowers is evil, so they obviously don't trust old Wally West. The thing that's wild about this is, Wally could have maybe tried to explain himself. I know the guards likely would have been having none of his crap and would have laid the beat down anyways, but isn't being a hero kind of about asking questions first and butt kicking second? I guess it depends on which superhero you ask. Anyways, whether you find it justifiable or not, Wally really puts the hurt on a whole bunch of guards in this comic, and I suspect he could have escaped without causing quite so much collateral damage. Number 3. He is sued for letting a woman burn. This one comes from 1989 in The Flash number 89. This story is focused around the limitations of the Flash's speed-based abilities. The Flash is actually in court in this issue, being sued for negligence in the case of a woman who tragically lost her legs in a building fire. Initially, readers are made to sympathize with the Flash because it's presumed that he just didn't see her or something. However, Flash later reveals that he feels like he did have enough time to look for her, and by focusing on other things, he left an innocent woman in a situation where she likely would have died. It's a pretty unique story where we see the weight and responsibility of a superhero's day-to-day decisions, and we also bear witness to the potential for tragedy that lies in every choice a superhero makes. Number 2. He messed with the space-time continuum. Dude, if there's any one takeaway from all this speedster stuff, not to mention decades of movies and stories about time travel, it's that you never mess with the time-space continuum. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but the one thing we all understand is you're not supposed to mess with it. In part 1 of this video, we mentioned how Barry's mother was murdered and his father was framed for it. Well, Barry Allen once tried to go back in time and save his mother, and it caused the entire Flashpoint event. It was an act with obviously good intentions, but man, the implications were seriously unsustainable. You think Barry would understand the potential for catastrophe in this kind of time traveling nonsense, but he just gives it the old college try anyways. As you can imagine, it doesn't really work out the way Flash wanted in the end. Number 1. Trapped Zoom in his worst memory. Leading up to The Flash number 200, published in 2003, Wally had been in battle against the insane speedster Zoom for the past few issues. Enlisting every speedster who would join, Wally borrowed their speed to aid him in his fight against Zoom. Despite this incredible newfound power, it's all Wally can do to keep up with Zoom as the two of them fight. In the midst of the battle, Zoom attacks Linda, Wally's wife at the time, releasing a sonic boom that injures her and ends the lives of babies in her womb. As you can imagine, Wally is really overcome with emotion because of this, and he gets a boost of rage and finally catches Zoom and finishes the battle. In the heat of the moment, he basically forces the villain through a rift in time, trapping him in an endless loop in a moment from the past. We see Zoom later trapped in a tube, endlessly reliving the worst moment of his life. So Nerd Squad, can you think of any extras that I left out? What's the worst thing that's ever happened to the Flash in your mind? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and don't forget to check out part 1 of this video if you haven't. Now let's take a look at some comments from part 1. Damien Baca says, can we take a moment to talk about how the guy narrating this is enjoying all of the Flash's suffering? Oh man, what can I say? You know, I just really love epic superhero moments. It's not so much I enjoy his suffering, I really enjoy sharing it with you guys. Jackson Taylor says, seriously hurt, he heads to Gorilla City and gets patched up by his friend Solivar, leader of the super intelligent gorilla race. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna stick with Marvel. Damn, dude, you seriously just buried DC Comics with that comment. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm Patty D, and this is Top 10 Nerd.